Hi everyone, I'm Styleboy and welcome to Ward. And today we're kind of doing something that I haven't actually really done properly, which is a full-blown commentary video with like my opinions and all that stuff. I know, we're getting deep today. I just thought it was very appropriate because you know how it's the beginning of the year, and always at the beginning of the year, everyone and their mother, including myself, makes like a vision board video and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna achieve all my goals and all that hustle culture, and do not worry, my vision board's coming. This has just been something that's been on my mind kind of recently, especially as the end of 2022 kind of happened and the beginning of 2023. A lot to do with like work and my life after uni and kind of putting pressure on myself to figure everything out, and I just simply couldn't. And I think there's been so many different influences that have kind of influenced this video for me to start, such as Madison's video about this. She's the main inspiration. Girl, if you're watching this, love you! This board that I saw on the British Tube at like North Greenwich Station, I love it. And just kind of discussing basically autism and work and about hustle culture versus I don't dream of labor. Before we start, obviously what do I need to give? Oh, that's right, disclaimers with my shiny blue nails. Number one, of course, I'm not going to be speaking for every autistic person because I'm one person. I can't speak for a whole community, but I can definitely speak alongside of myself as an autistic person. And I think along this dialogue, we really haven't seen much about disabled people or any neurodivergent people. So I think this would be really relevant and really interesting within this dialogue personally. Number two, I'm not here to like shame anyone for whichever pathway they want to go, because honestly, at the end of the day, it's whichever one you feel like it's best for you. And for me, this is definitely something that I've realized while even researching for this video. So please, there is no shame. And three, this is supposed to be majorly a discussion video. I want this video in the comment section to be more of a discussion, and if being like, hey, like look at this, or hey, read that, or just talking about your own opinions. Because even when I commented on Madison's video, someone was like, hey, have you actually like read more about it? And da-da-da-da. And I was like, no, I haven't. And then I read more about the like I don't dream of labor thing, and I was like, ah, interesting. And then I literally thanked them. So this is supposed to be a discussion type. Do not be aggressive. This is a pace that we learn all together. And of course, if you end up enjoying like the commentary side and like an autistic perspective, please subscribe. That'd be so much fun. I would really enjoy that. And also give this video a thumbs up. Do you know the traditional YouTuber stuff? Like all of that? Let's do that. Let's bring back those old vibes. And without further ado, let us begin with the first side. The first side of this argument I really want to talk about is hustle culture. You probably have heard about it. This was like everywhere at one point, but if you don't know what hustle culture is, let me explain. Basically, working really hard to achieve your dreams and achieve your goals and achieve your aspirations. Now, in theory, that doesn't sound that bad. You know, like if it's just like working and planning and figuring out how to make your dreams come true, no, that doesn't sound bad at all. However, she has some problems, hustle culture. Hustle culture gives masculine energy, let's be honest. He has some problems. Hustle culture can be absolutely exhausting. And the problem a lot with hustle culture, and I think that a lot of people were kind of noticing very quickly, is it kind of feeds into this like idea that like working is literally the only thing that a person can do, and their main purpose in life is to work, which is exhausting and tiring, and obviously is then the counter argument to I don't dream of labor, which we'll get onto next. But also the fact of like it's exhausting, like especially the way that they go around it, it's sometimes can be quite intense, especially when you compare it to other people and their other perspectives. Again, the classic phrase of Beyonce has the same hours of you in a day, what do you think she does? She works her ass off and all that stuff, and it's like, okay. So then you feel pressured to do the same, although you're absolutely exhausted. And it often means sacrificing those essential self-care elements, such as sleep. Sleep is for the weak, you sleep when you die. Have you heard that phrase before? That comes into it, which me and sleep are like bestie. If I don't get enough sleep, bitch, I am affected. Eating, even taking breaks and rest, And it's basically about the idea that you constantly have to be productive and you constantly have to be on 24/7. Honestly, it is exhausting and it is tiring. And I can say this because I have definitely felt pressure into that hustle culture myself as an autistic person. Now, from my perspective, I am a third-year student at university. And so basically now, well, not even now, like even in year 2 and even year 1, we were having discussions and thoughts and like literal projects about preparing yourself for outside industry. Like we're already making portfolios in year 1 and I was like, what work do I have to show? And then when you hear my lecturer, Jesus, he might as well be named like the crown of like hustle culture, because this man was doing the absolute most. He's talking about all his past different jobs and his past different experiences all the time. And while interesting, damn, this boy did not get a rise. At one point, he was like to us, yeah, I had like 2 different computers, one being on one job and then the other being on another, trying to work on both at the same time. And I'm just like, I would die. And it doesn't help that some of my peers at uni are doing the exact same thing. Like I think one of them is like, oh yeah, like I work a part-time job, but then I'm also doing this internship and then I'm also doing this thing. And I'm like, what? And then you just hear all these experiences and all these things and just constantly like, they're constantly go, and you feel so pressured to do the same. So even within my projects and stuff like that, I'm literally doing that. Like I'm trying to balance them out. But then when you're given like 2 really big important projects, you're just like, oh my god, go. And the problem is that it's still a form of hustle culture. It's the idea that you constantly have to be on the go to the point where your self-care and your boundaries and all that stuff gets thrown out the window for the idea of work, because hard work will pay off. But in reality, you still need those self-care elements. And this is something I've definitely had to learn as an autistic person, because unfortunately for me, I feel stressed so much more quicker than other people. I feel burnout so much more quicker. And I feel so much more intensity from projects sometimes, and it can be so much more difficult, especially when trying to balance 2 really big important projects, which was literally what I was doing this year. And especially the end of last year, trying to manage my final major project research and my dissertation, like both at the same time. Like I got so exhausted to the point where like I became ill. Like I was so tired and drained and burnt out. And the thing is, it's like, even on those rest days, like you end up having to still be productive and still be doing something, because in your eyes, when in the times of hustle culture, if you're not doing something to benefit you or to be productive or to be on, then it's pointless and you're not doing anything. And to me, I think that's absolutely BS, because have you not heard of rest? Rest is so important, and to do stuff that's outside of work, to relax and take a step away. And I feel like the thing is, we don't get taught that in school. And even in like, I was gonna say, even in like previous, when I was in like secondary, I took advice very literal. For like GCSEs, I got told that we had to study since like the 2nd week of January. And I literally did that, and I was working my ass off. And again, to the point where I was so tired. Even in that sense of when you take time to rest, but you're not truly resting, it just feels like you're on this constant hamster wheel, going and going and going and going and going and going. And for me, it's like even that cycle of like, I can't even rest because I have to think of the next thing to do. That's literally how I was feeling by the end of the year before I went to Edinburgh. And the thing is, no one was really giving me advice that was like comforting or like reassuring. And especially being autistic, because my mind just sometimes races to the next thing, because it's, again, in the terms of priority, that has to be done, that has to be looked at, that has to be thing. It can just be like, honestly, really mentally draining as well, because not only do we have to like try and navigate a world that already isn't really designed for us sometimes, and go through certain things that are already quite mentally exhausting to go through, such as constant senses being tested to the limits, like sudden changes sometimes, and you just having to like deal with them and process them. Even they can be difficult at times, or just everything just feeling overwhelming and on top of you. It can be a lot. And then trying to add hustle culture into that, it's like, babe, where are we gonna go with this? To me, I just feel like it's really difficult. Like, I really feel like it's difficult to manage all of that and participate in hustle culture, because it's just physically impossible for me. I physically cannot do it. It's too much. And it's also the idea that like productivity is only reliant on work, and I don't like that either. And maybe this is just my perspective, but I definitely believe there's more to life than just work. So for me, at the end of the day, like, I just don't believe I can participate in hustle culture because it's so draining and exhausting, and it does not leave you room for you to move and grow and develop as a human. I've definitely heard, not only from my perspective, but other people such as like Cozy K, I love her, just kind of talk about how work has really affected her life, especially switching from having 2 jobs, being a lawyer and a content creator, to just being a content creator. Like that shift and that like switch, how that really affected her.
I worked so much so that I wouldn't have, like, my coping mechanism is to work, basically. My unhealthy coping mechanism, which we've talked about endlessly. Y'all know this. Y'all know the ins and outs of my negative coping mechanisms. It is to work incessantly so that I don't have time. Like, basically to force myself into a survival mode so that I don't have time or energy or mental capacity to think about anything or feel anything negative. Yay, repress everything. But now that I do, and now that I have some days where I just don't have something, like once I finished in the past kind of 2 weeks, there would be days where I'd finish something and then not have something else to do. I've never had that in the past year plus. I haven't had that. I've always had something to think about, something to do, like in a lot of stuff. So just like, but that would put me in a state where, like, because there was so much to think about and do, I just like wouldn't think, I wouldn't stress, I wouldn't worry about it. It would just be like, okay, well, I'll get to that when I get to it. But I wouldn't think about any other things, because it's like, why would I worry about like inconsequential things when I have like real shit that I have to worry about and get to? But then I just like wouldn't think about it because it was too stressful to think about.
That's also really interesting to like listen and learn about, because I just think in that sense it makes you just go really realizing like, okay, this is why I don't suit for this. I don't know. And maybe it's just my opinion, but I definitely feel like for me personally, I just don't feel like hustle culture works very well. And I feel like it's just a wee bit overwhelming. Now, the opposite extreme, I don't dream in labor. So this got really popular like 1 year, like last year. Now, I honestly had to do a little bit more research onto it because I just wanted to investigate further. And I kind of found the main principle of that is not prioritizing your work as your identity focus and the only thing you want to focus on in life. I watched 2 videos who really explained it very well, and I'll put those down below as well. This feels like kind of like a dissertation, right? So basically the main primary focus of I Don't Dream in Labor is to focus on you and your life and your passions and your goals. Again, kind of like hustle culture, but instead of like making work the main focus and your main driving force, it's kind of like more your passions and what you enjoy and focusing on them as your career, because it's basically the idea that work should not be overrunning your life, and being corporate and having this position of like work running you to the ground and being exhausted, and your mental health should not have to suffer because of work and the capitalist society we live in. Embracing more of your passions and your joys, which I don't, like, initially when listening to this, I was like, there are loads of points I definitely agree with, such as like your work should not be your main identifying factor. But I also just kind of sat back and I was like, that's really confusing to me, because maybe this is just me as like a neurodivergent person or as a gay person, but I would never put my work as my main factor. Like, even if I was introducing myself, I would be like, oh, I'm a gay autistic student at most, and then talk about my interests. To me, that's just really strange. But I also kind of found out while like researching and kind of watching videos about that, a lot of the focus of when talking about the jobs and the careers that they were originally not liking and then they dream of different ones, often don't talk about the creative industry. And I'm a creative boy, so at the end of the day, they still count as jobs. They're more like passions, they're more like joys and stuff that drives you and pushes you forward because you like them. I don't know, at the end of the day, like, there's just so many jobs that are also out there that don't necessarily connect to the idea of working for a corporate or doing an academic job or a study or something that's just reliable and safe, such as like law or doctors or medicine or scientists and all that stuff. There are, again, so many industries that are out there which still classes as work, but they're not in the idea of like traditional work, such as like makeup artists, performers, dancers, models. They all still count as jobs. But I think it's because people class them more as passions, but I don't know, to me, it just kind of goes back into the idea that like creative jobs are never going to be seen as equal, and it just reminds me of that lockdown BS. God, that pissed me off. It kind of like subconsciously kind of goes back into the idea that those jobs will never be seen as jobs. And it's just like, oh, as much as like passions, they still can give you money. Even in the description, someone did write about like, I obviously understand like not everyone can do this, which is obviously about privilege, which is why I think that's what I wrote in my comment. I still believe there's a big degree of privilege within these things because of stuff like race, like literally where you grew up, your environment, your economic background, like from your family and from different people. That influences you, your disabilities, gender identity, and like so many more, and just discrimination as well. I feel like we have to put that in there. And I obviously understand the main focus of this is actually just more balance. I'm definitely not such an extreme person who's like, oh, I think this is like wrong, because I'm like, I don't really think it is. I personally, for me, I do think life is about balance and about enjoying life. But I also want to enjoy a career as well. At the moment, that's what I'm thinking. Again, my opinion could change also. I really want to experiment and try different careers and different, like, not careers, but to try different parts of an industry out. And I think the idea that work, and I don't think either of these people said it, like either side, so I kind of want to say that the idea that work is still not something you can play and experiment with, and just that it's this rigid thing that you must follow and do the one job, and you can't try out different industries and different paths, is ridiculous. Like, it's the same thing of like you having a degree, but then if you don't like the jobs in your degree, you can't try out different pathways. A really good example would be like my degree, a fashion promotion student. Because the good thing is I learned a lot about like how to market creatively and how to promote different like clothing brands, and like how to promote different things and do so many different pathways within the fashion industry, such as magazines, events, PR, we kind of did a little bit of that, videography, photography, and styling. The good thing is, at the end of the day, I can leave my degree and try out all these different pathways because they're all available to me. And even if I want to change industry, if I'm like, ugh, I don't really want to do fashion, I want to go to music, or I want to do like a beauty one, I still have the opportunity. And I'm just really confused why people don't view careers and works and jobs as something you can also experiment and play with. And I think in terms of like why I think this one does affect me in another way is because, yeah, I do agree with a lot of those philosophies. Work should not be your center around life. That's what I definitely agree with 1000%. And I think as an autistic person, I've seen the effects more positively when it's that way, when like you are able to be more in control of your life, versus the other way when you have work be in control of your life. That's what I've just kind of noticed, at least so far, which is why at the moment, like, it's kind of scary to get back into a position like that. With doing my internship for a PR company, like, a lot of the control, a lot of that got taken away, and I realized how much I was staying at work, and the idea that like I was constantly there, and it was quite, to a degree, honestly tiring. I mean, granted, I didn't enjoy working in PR, it's just not for me. I was there quite a lot, and it just was quite long also. I remember when I first started, I was working from like 9:30 to 6. That's literally almost the day. I worked on Oxford Street, which was the busy district shopping. So coming home, I would go home during rush hour, which is the worst. My sensories and my sensory overload, literally on the way home I was just melting down. And the problem is I would come home for like 7, I would eat, I would feel so tired, and I would go home, sleep, then wake up, go back to work, because I had to start early, go back on this, like go. And literally for 2 weeks, I literally could not survive. I literally was at my worst position I think I've ever been. And I was so tired and so drained and so exhausted. I guess this kind of feeds more into hustle culture, but that I literally had to ask for an accommodation. So I did so obviously my timings did change, and instead of working 5 days, I worked 4 days, and instead of working till 6, I worked till 4. So obviously my hours changed, so obviously that's really good. But even that, I still recognize like, wow, I'm here at work quite a lot. And it just made me reflect like, this is really interesting. And then when I look back at when I was doing content creating during the summer, it makes me feel like I was really like working independently, working for myself. And maybe that's it. Maybe I just always need to be self-employed. I don't know, because self-employment's also another path. I just think with the idea of like, I don't dream of work, I agree to a lot of the philosophies. I just think the idea that a career has to be strictly to do with the idea of like a corporation, just an academia subject, I think just neglects a bunch of different career paths. I feel like no one else discusses. And especially if you're a creative person and you just wanted to pursue your passions as your job, then like, it still classes as a job at the end of the day. I don't know. Does that make sense? So now this part of the video, the main thing I want to kind of do is discuss like my experience as an autistic person within just work in general and how I think I'm just gonna look at it from now on, because to me, I just feel like this part is really important. And I know I did one like ages ago when I was like working in retail. That sounds like Mario Kart. I know I made a video about this when I was like working in retail, but like now that I've also done like a corporation, it doesn't count. But an internship can now discuss it from that kind of opinion. And I think the idea that like, I don't know about this for other autistic people, if you can relate, or other neurodivergent people, but I put my effort and my all into every single thing I do. Even if I'm not like fully passionate about it, I will still put everything into it to make sure that it's done on time to the best of my ability. And this is why like the idea of like quiet quitting just never really clicked with me, because I was like, especially when I was starting to hear about it, I was like, this content creator named Travis, love him. He basically spoke about the idea of quiet quitting as well as a neurodivergent person, and he explained it really well, so I'll put it here.
I haven't talked about it in a while, but for those who are new here, I'm neurodivergent, I have ADHD, and I am on the autistic spectrum. And part of my neurotype means that from the outside, it always seems like I'm doing too much, that I'm too keen, too passionate, too obsessed with what I do. That means there's always a huge discrepancy between the emotional investment into what I do and the rewards that I get. That means I often set myself up for failure, disappointment, or betrayal. And that's not even mentioning all of the social hoops we have to jump through and the systemic barriers we have to jump over. And the thing is, I'm not stupid. I see it just as well as someone from the outside that I'm doing too much, but I just can't operate in any other way. I would love to adequately adjust how much effort I put into something, or even just the right healthy amount, but I can't do that. And it's almost embarrassing because people see you doing too much and they think you're a fool, or they resent you, they see you as a threat, or they think you're trying to outcompete them when in reality, you're the one heading headfirst into burnout and you know it and you can't do anything about it and no one's helping you.
I fully agree with him. I simply cannot just go in and be like, I'm gonna slowly quiet quit or slowly put less pressure on some things, because at the end of the day, it's my job, it's work. And I wanna make sure that like I do work to the best of my ability because it's also mine. So like it goes down to like me and how I present myself to the world. And obviously I do know that employers just want good work, full stop. They don't really care about your mental health and whatever, which sucks. And I definitely experienced that for both positions and it absolutely sucked. Makes you just realize it's like how important it is to have those rest elements, to have those moments to yourself, as in like away from a career and away from life in general. To me at least, I don't know. I think this is the other thing that people don't really understand. It's like, it's so much just piled on top. And then the expectation to be like participating within a work, within hustle culture, and basically working your ass off, it's exhausting. And then we're the ones to blame when we're like, we can't do stuff. And the thing is, I know there's like laws and things, discrimination with work, but they can't discriminate. But you know when you still feel it, and you still feel discriminated at your place of work, that's how I also feel. It's really, really difficult to work in a position where you just feel like the place is against you also. It's really, really hard. And I don't know, it just makes you feel really upset, and then you really question yourself, which is the problem. It's like, you don't want to question yourself. I mean, A, you don't want to, but also B, I also do question myself because I try to be introspective and I try to look at the full picture, but it was really, really hard, basically. I don't know why I'm like really finding this difficult to talk about, but I think it just kind of was. And even when you look at the statistics about disabilities in general and about autism to be exact, I didn't realize how much unemployment was quite common, which really, really sucks. There's a part of me that's like, that's high. And that's slightly nerve-wracking it's nerve-wracking because it just kind of shows that this place, the world that we live in is still, can be still discriminatory. And of course, again, I know there's other reasons for it. I would not be surprised if ableism comes into it. And I just feel like employment and ableism is really something that slightly also terrifies me about work also, because I don't want to be discriminated because of my disability. Of course, I know it's based off ignorance and based off miseducation and all that stuff. I completely get that. But I also feel like as much as like it's their fault, it's also like there's a fear. Like, and it puts even more pressure on me to find a full-time job because I don't want to be part of that statistic that isn't employed because of discrimination. And it becomes even more harder, especially when you're so openly about your disability, to kind of like find something, a job that will accommodate for your disability. Again, I know it's part of the law, but it just still, it's like, it still scares me because I've had like where, again, I asked for accommodation, I got it, but then they twisted it a little bit, or they didn't fully understand and they ended up biting me in the arse. So it still freaks me out. It's so overwhelming. And even with uni work at the moment and doing multiple projects and trying to balance them all, it's overwhelming. It can be super overwhelming and super tiring. They also take a lot of energy out of you. No, I don't mean like just a bit, I mean a lot of energy out of you. Because at the end of the day, you're constantly having to use your creative brain, and a lot of your research is constantly go. And then balancing it upon with also an essay you also have to write, and then a bunch of other stuff you also have to do. It's a lot. Yes, planning and organizing does help, but there's a point where you just feel exhausted. Constantly going, constantly on this ball. And I don't think uni projects help with that because it's also constantly go. Sometimes the idea of even having to think of the next step while you're involved within your own step is overwhelming and is a lot. You already have this thing that you're immediately focused on. Immediately, like, this is my priority. This is the thing I need to work on. This is my ultimate goal. And then like, right, you gotta think of your next step. You gotta think of the next thing to do. You gotta go like, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? That's overwhelming. And I get that, again, other people face this, but like, again, particularly when you're autistic, even focusing on like the next part of a project, that's even overwhelming. And that's a lot because at the end of the day, like so much of your effort is focused on the immediate thing that you're doing because you understand that as the immediate thing that I need to do. And they want you to do the next thing like 3 steps ahead. We want you to like fully start with this project and we want you to immediately work on your portfolio. We want you to work on your CV at the same time. Honestly, just feels like the constant weight is on your shoulders and then this pressure to fit in with everyone else because they're all doing something and you feel like you have to do that. That's another thing I didn't discuss. Constantly just feels like a pressure to keep up with everyone, which is a very neurodivergent experience. To constantly feel like you have to keep up with every single neurotypical person, even if you know that pathway doesn't necessarily link up to you, because at the end of the day, like they're neurotypical and that is the standard in society that we live by. So when you're already outside of that norm, majorly because of your disability, it just feels like you're constantly having these bricks on your shoulders to keep up where everyone has like a small little backpack. It's just something that I feel like is just a lot and I feel like is overwhelming at moments and can just be very difficult. Hi everyone, it is Editing Me here with my teeny tiny mic. One thing I kind of wanted to discuss within this topic is about the government and the government being able to give you money as a disabled person. Because if you did not know, the government can give you money in order to help you survive with all the additional costs that it is to be a disabled person, because being disabled is expensive. Let's not deny it is. Having both money from the government and work, if you decide to work, is good because at the end of the day, like you have a lot less pressure to work in order to survive, because the government giving you that money allows you to do what is necessary to help you as a disabled person live. However, it is incredibly difficult to get onto these lists and to get this money. It's so hard. I've been actually having this fund for quite a long while, since I was a kid, and I've recently actually just this month got cut off from it because they said I was like, what was it? Like I was borderline almost there, but I could take care of myself too much. Ableism. Am I right, ladies? So now that puts pressure back onto me in order to work to not only take care of myself in this world And because again, being disabled is more expensive and can be more expensive in general, it's going to be even more money, and then I'm spending more, and therefore it's tough. It is really, really tough, especially for a government that doesn't truly understand what it is like to be disabled and doesn't understand the nuances. That's another pressure that's onto the list, and yeah, it's tough. It's tough and it's nerve-wracking at moments. So I just wanted to add that in there because it's something that I don't think people discuss, and I think it's valid in this conversation. However, I don't want to just be negative, because while that side also affects me, there are also some positives that I want to kind of discuss also that I feel like for me really do help, and they do actually end up benefiting just honestly me a lot. And I know some of this connects to like the that girl aesthetic. Oh my god, that girl. And like the soft life. Like I feel like they all kind of connect, especially the way I'm trying to live life now. The first thing is majorly that I still need to prioritize self-care. I do. Self-care is so important for me, and of course self-care looks different to every single person. It's not just like running bubble baths and being like, although I love me a bubble bath. For me, a lot of my self-care ends up doing with movement. I love like movement and socialization, both love, and they're so important for me. I especially realized that just as the years have progressed, how important those things are to me, but also having my alone time to decompress and to process and to engage in my specialized interests and just engage in stuff that I really am enjoying in general. For example, going to the gym. I love going to the gym. If you know, your boy loves it. Oh, you can kind of see my muscles. Hey. And going outside, and at least one time a week, going outside of the house, maybe to meet with a friend. That's another goal of mine, to meet up or FaceTime with a friend, to engage in a social activity or just to go outside. Again, I know this sounds like a really like, yes, Steph, we know. Seriously, it helps me a lot, like so much. And I've definitely noticed my mood is improved when I do it versus when I don't do it. Oh my god. But should I tell you what else is also really important to me? My alone time, and being in my room and being on my bed to just relax and decompress after the day and having time to recharge. Just relaxing and engaging in my specialized interest, or just sitting down and doing stuff that I really enjoy, like watching movies and Disney movies, exactly. Comfort movies, because comfort movies will always be a good support, especially because like you know what happens, so it's just really nice to enjoy. Or playing on my Switch, or reading, which I need to get more back into my book. Another point is planning. I'm a planner girl, I cannot deny. But also I'm a planner girl because of my autism. When everyone's like, oh, I need to like try and plan more, I'm like, bitch, it's in my DNA. I just love it. And I know that's a sign of like productivity, like figuring out a plan for the day. It doesn't even have to be like, oh, today I'm gonna be doing like 5 different essays and 5 different things. So it can even be stuff like, today I'm literally gonna go and just clean my room. They still count as productive. And this is what I just recently saw. Again, this was in Madison's video. I don't know who originally said it. The idea that productivity isn't just linked to work, but also linked around yourself and you're caring about yourself. Even if I'm like, okay, I'm exhausted, but I went to the gym today, like that is great. And that's still productive because you're taking care of you. Stuff to take care of yourself should still be counted as productive, because at the end of the day, it's for you. But also the same thing to recognize is also taking time away to just figure out what you like and engage in the stuff and what you like. Again, autistic, this is one thing I'm definitely a pro of when it comes to that work-life balance, basically, because at the end of the day, one of our key elements are specialized interest. So for us, at the end of the day, one that ends up being a joy is that when we engage in our specialized interests and our hyperfixations and we really go into them. So whether that is a film franchise or books or an album, engaging in stuff outside of the idea of work also really benefits you. And this is something, again, as an autistic person, thrives in, because at the end of the day, that's part of our self-care, and that's part of what we enjoy, so why would we stop doing that? That also, the idea of that kind of reinforces your identity outside of your work, because at the end of the day, like, you're not primarily connected to your job, and because you have interest outside of your job that you want to pursue and you engage in, and it's great. I have so much more to learn, I have so much more to experience, so please also keep that in mind. But I just wanted to conclude this video by saying, please do what's best for you as a person. Do not feel pressured into participating in a culture that simply does not work for you or will never work for you. And my aim this year would be a lot more kinder to myself within working, because at the end of the day, if I'm not mentally up here to work, then my work isn't going to be to its best performance. And I would rather have my work be really good and take slower than my work be really bad but do it as quick. And to all my autistic folks out there, you are loved. I really hope you enjoyed this discussion. This is very discussion based. This is just me talking. If you want more commentary videos, comment down below. Please like and subscribe. And I shall see you guys next week with my vision board video. Bye everyone.